So there's a Harry Potter theory I want to share with you guys. When Lily Potter died, Molly Weasley took Harry in as her own and welcomed him to her family. So in return, when Fred died, Lily Potter was there to welcome him to heaven and take him in as her own. I've got another Harry Potter theory for you guys. Snape hates Neville and bullies him all the time, but why is that? Well, we later find out that the prophecy could have been about Neville, not Harry. And if it was about Neville, Lily never would have died, hence why Snape hates him. He blames him for Lily's death. Harry Potter theory number 3. So we know that the Dursleys were awful people and were always angry and hated Harry, but why is that? Well, we later find out that Harry was a horcrux. And in Deathly Hallows, we saw how the horcrux really affected Ron. It made him angry, irrational, and sort of a bad person. So considering the fact that the Dursleys lived with Harry as a horcrux for 10 years, that explains why the Dursleys might be the way they are. They were affected by the horcrux inside of Harry. Harry Potter fun fact number 1. So in the first Harry Potter book, we met Firenze the Centaur. While in the Forbidden Forest, when Harry had his detention, Firenze let Harry ride on the back of him. But this angered the other Centaurs because they had read in the stars that Harry Potter was supposed to die in the Forbidden Forest, which is where he was at this time. They thought that Firenze had ruined this prophecy and interfered. The thing is, the prophecy that Harry would die in the Forbidden Forest was not going to take place during the first book. What they had actually seen was Harry dying during the Battle of Hogwarts when he gave his life in the Forbidden Forest in Deathly Hallows. Halloween in Harry Potter is super important, and here's why. Halloween in 1981 changed Harry's life forever because Voldemort killed his parents, Lily and James Potter. 10 years later, on Halloween in 1991, a troll was led into the school, and fighting that troll was what brought the Golden Trio together. Harry, Ron, and Hermione became best friends that night. 1 year later, Halloween 1992, the Chamber of Secrets was opened, and that was the start of one of the darkest years in Hogwarts history. 1 year after that, Halloween 1993, Sirius Black broke into Gryffindor Common Room, and this was the first time that Harry and Sirius were in the same room after Lily and James died. Then 1 year after that, Halloween 1994, that was the day that Harry's name came out of the Goblet of Fire, putting him in the Triwizard Tournament. And finally, Halloween greatly influenced Rowling for the Deathly Hallows, hence its name. Rowling said that both Halloween and the Hallows are about the spooky and unknown. Have you ever wondered why Snape hates the Golden Trio? Well, considering the fact that Hermione is a Muggle-born, Ron has red hair, and Harry has green eyes, put all of that together, and you have Lily Potter, a red-headed, green-eyed Muggle-born. The trio constantly reminds him of the woman he lost. It brings up the most tragic thing in his life, and seeing them, it pains him. Okay, so hear me out. So in the first Harry Potter book, McGonagall says, "I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future." So the day that she was talking about was October 31st, 1981. So I'm going to go with McGonagall and say, we should start calling Halloween Harry Potter Day. Let's make it happen, guys. Share this, like it, spread the word. Halloween is now Harry Potter Day. Who introduced you to the Harry Potter books? This is a good question. My grandmother did, actually. And the books I have right now are actually all from her. There are notes in there that say, like, to Morgan, love Grandma. Unfortunately, she actually never finished the series. Hold up, so this is the last book, and she unfortunately never finished the series. This is her bookmark right here. I never took it out. But one thing I did do, I've only told one other person this, but I took time, and from the bookmark that she left, I read it out loud. Like, literally just, like, read it out loud, the rest of the book to her. It took, like, 3 weeks, but I would do it every afternoon. And it was kind of my way of, like, if she was listening, for her to just finish the series. I've never really told anybody that, but yeah, she was the one that got me into Harry Potter. So I noticed something cool about Harry and Voldemort. When they fight, Harry's Expelliarmus charm is red, and Voldemort's Avada Kedavra charm is green. And I think there's a good reason why that is. Each of their spells is the opposite of the other's eye color. Voldemort's eyes are red, like Harry's Expelliarmus, and Harry's eyes are green, like Voldemort's Avada Kedavra. You guys ever wondered how the Sorting Hat was made? After many years of the 4 Hogwarts founders, Salazar Slytherin, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw sorting their own students into their own houses. As they got older and closer to death, they realized that they had to come up with another way to sort the students. So before all of them died, Gryffindor took off the hat he was wearing, and all 4 of them enchanted it, telling the hat who they liked, what kind of students they wanted, and so on. And so, the hat was born. It got a personality through their charms and spells to make it come to life. And then, they called it the Sorting Hat. How crazy is it that Severus Snape was in love with Lily, she died, and he never loved any other woman. He loved Lily his whole life. So that means that Snape died a virgin. Here's a fun behind-the-scenes fact about Harry Potter. So the person that directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies was Chris Columbus. And he also directed the first 2 Home Alone movies. So in the Home Alone series, in Home Alone 3, there is a girl named Molly Pruitt. And funnily enough, that is Molly Weasley's original name. Her name was Molly Pruitt before she married Arthur Weasley. So while making this video where I break down the entire first book of Harry Potter, I noticed something really funny. So Dumbledore tells Harry, after Harry went through all of this to protect the stone, that only someone who wanted to find it and not use it would be able to get it from the Mirror of Erised. Otherwise, they just see themselves making gold or drinking the elixir of life. So this means that everything that the trio went through to get that stone was unnecessary because he wouldn't have gotten it even if they hadn't been there. So in the Harry Potter series, there are 2 main Wizarding Wars. The first Wizarding War when Voldemort first rose to power, and the second Wizarding War when Voldemort came back. Both of those wars saw a lot of death and destruction, but both times there was one thing that brought light to the darkness, and that was Harry Potter. Harry single-handedly ended both wars. First as a baby when Voldemort tried to kill him, and he was the boy who lived. And then in the Battle of Hogwarts when he fought Voldemort, and then he was the chosen one. So in Harry's 7 years at Hogwarts, he faced and fought a troll, almost died by a teacher's hand and faced Voldemort, watched his best friend and 6 others be petrified, almost lost his best friend's sister, faced and fought a basilisk, faced Voldemort again, Dementors almost took his and his godfather's soul, he was attacked by his teacher who had turned into a werewolf, he was forced to compete in a tournament that took many people's lives and he almost lost his own life many times, was tricked by a professor who sent him straight to Voldemort, he watched a fellow student die right in front of him, he faced Voldemort again along with a whole group of Death Eaters, was present for an entire battle that took place in the castle with the most dangerous Death Eaters, saw his best friend's brother get scarred for life in that battle, fought in a battle that took many of his friends' lives, and he still thought it was a good idea to send his kids to that school. If you want to feel old, here's a fact for you. The last Harry Potter movie came out 10 years ago. So let's talk about Lord Voldemort. This dude dedicated his life to staying alive forever. He split his soul into 7 parts. Technically 8 if you count him being on the back of Quirrell's head, because technically that was a horcrux. And he died at the age of 71 after all of that. He died a very early age for not just a wizard, but a muggle. So, was it worth it, Tommy boy? I don't think so. Let's talk about Cornelius Fudge, the worst minister of magic ever. So I made a video going over the first and last lines of each Harry Potter character on my YouTube channel. And his first words were, "Bad business, Hagrid, very bad business." The first word being bad. And in that same video, I went over his last line, which was, "The trouble is, the other side can do magic too, Prime Minister." And notice the last word was minister. So if you take his first word, bad, and his last word, minister, it says bad minister, which is exactly what he was. So here's a crazy Harry Potter fact for you. If we go by the timeline of when the books took place, the trio would be 41 years old right now in 2021. On top of that, for Harry's kids, he would have 1 kid in her 3rd year, 1 kid, which is Albus, in his 5th year, and James would be in his final year at Hogwarts in his 7th year. And Ron and Hermione would have kids, 1 in the 4th year and 1 in the 5th year. And just one more thing. When we go 19 years into the future for the final chapter, that was 4 years ago. That was 2017. We are now in 2021. That is crazy. So in Harry Potter, Harry's pet was Hedwig the owl. And Dumbledore's pet was also a bird, Fawkes the Phoenix. So as you know, Hedwig died. She died in the Battle of Seven Potters in the final book. And then we have Dumbledore, who died at the end of Half-Blood Prince. So Harry was missing a pet bird, and Fawkes was missing its master. So what I always wanted to see was Fawkes and Harry come together after those two deaths. Harry lost a pet bird, so Fawkes fills that role, and Fawkes missed a loving owner, a role that Harry could fill. It only makes sense. I can't believe J.K. Rowling missed this. Every single year, there's a different Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, but why is that? This was actually the work of Lord Voldemort himself. When Dumbledore said that he could not have the job as Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, he got mad and cursed the job. And ever since then, the job has been cursed. Let's look at what happened to each one of these characters. Cornelius Quirrell, he ended up dying. Gilderoy Lockhart, he ended up losing his memory and spent the rest of his life in St. Mungo's Hospital in the memory ward, never getting his memory back ever again. Remus Lupin, because of that job, it came out that he was a werewolf to the rest of the world, which was Snape's fault, and later he died. Mad-Eye Moody, because he took on the job, he was kidnapped and held captive for the entire school year. And Barty Crouch Jr., who ended up teaching for most of the year, got the Dementor's kiss, which is almost worse than death. Dolores Umbridge, she was taken over by the Centaurs, and if it weren't for Dumbledore, she would have died there. But ultimately, she didn't die like the others, but she did spend the rest of her life in Azkaban prison. Severus Snape, he was forced to kill Dumbledore the year that he became Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, and later, he died. Amicus Carrow, technically he taught the Dark Arts, not Defense Against the Dark Arts, but same thing. And he spent the rest of his life in Azkaban prison. Because of Voldemort, all of these teachers that took on the Defense Against the Dark Arts job ended up having a terrible fate, either dying, going to Azkaban, or losing their memory. One thing really cool about the Harry Potter books is each book is dedicated to one family. The first book is about the Dursley family. We start from their point of view, and we see how they treated Harry over the last 10 years. The second book belongs to the Weasleys. We meet Arthur Weasley for the first time, completing the family besides just Bill and Charlie, and it focuses a lot on Ginny Weasley as she got the diary and was taken down to the Chamber of Secrets. The third book belongs to the Potter family. We learn about James Potter's past as a marauder, and we see the marauder's map, and we find out that he was an illegal animagus. The fourth book is about the Crouch family. We meet Barty Crouch Jr. and Barty Crouch Sr., and we find out that everything happened was orchestrated by Barty Crouch Jr. pretending to be Mad-Eye Moody. The fifth book belongs to the Black family. We're introduced to the Black family tree for the first time. We're in Grimmauld Place, which was a Black family home. We're introduced to Bellatrix. We find out how Sirius is connected to Bellatrix, Narcissa, and Lucius Malfoy. The sixth book belongs to the Gaunt family, which is Voldemort's family. We dive into their past with the memories that Dumbledore shows Harry. We find out about Merope, Voldemort's mother, Morphin Gaunt, his uncle, and Marvolo, his grandfather. And we find out all about the Gaunt ring and how Voldemort made that one of his horcruxes. And finally, the seventh book belongs to the Dumbledore family. We dive into Dumbledore's past, learn about his sister Ariana, his brother Aberforth, and what happened to his parents. So each book represents one family. It's a very interesting concept that I really love.